Hi everybody, we are reading The Summer According to Humphrey, and we are on chapter 2. Humphrey has just been told that school is closing and he does not understand what's going on. Chapter 2, the beginning of summer. The next few days passed quickly. Mr. Fitch, the librarian, came to room 26 and collected all the library books, every last one of them. This was unspeakably sad to me because I love the library and I love to hear Mrs. Brisbane read to us. But now that was over. Then Mrs. Wright, the physical education teacher with the loud, shiny whistle, came in with a list of games and equipment that my friends had checked out. I guess I wouldn't miss her too much. At the end of the day, Mrs. Brisbane told all of us about her upcoming trip to Tokyo and showed pictures of the wonderful places she would visit without me. The next day would be the last day of school. That night, when the door swung open and Aldo said, "Give me a cheer, Aldo is here," I felt happy and sad and all mixed up inside. I was happy because I was always glad to see Aldo, but I was sad because I didn't know when or if I'd ever see him again. "This is it, pals," said Aldo. "Tomorrow, school is over." "Don't remind me," I squeaked. "I'll be here tomorrow night," Aldo continued. "I'll be waxing the floors, but you guys will be gone somewhere." He suddenly stopped twirling his broom. "Where will you be?" My heart skipped a beat. Aldo didn't know where we'd be, and I certainly didn't know where we'd be, so who did know? Aldo chuckled and started sweeping again. "I'll bet Mrs. Brisbane has cooked up something special for you. She's one nice lady." Aldo got through his work early and hurried through his dinner, but he remembered to give me a bit of lettuce. I wasn't very hungry though, so I hid it at the bottom of my cage. I'd been saving food all week just in case Mrs. Brisbane hadn't cooked up something special for us the way Aldo said. Way back in September, when a beautiful woman named Ms. Mack bought me from Pedorama to room 26, I was excited and amazed to find myself surrounded by so many bright and bouncy students. No frogs yet. Learning about humans was fun, and I also learned to read and write. The world looked pretty wonderful from my cage until the day Ms. Mack left to go to Brazil and Mrs. Brisbane, who was the real teacher, came back. It turned out that Ms. Mack was just a substitute. It turned out that Mrs. Brisbane didn't like me. It turned out that I didn't like her back. But over time, I learned that Mrs. Brisbane was a very good teacher who cared about her students. And over time, she learned that I was a very good hamster who cared about her students as much as she did. A wonderful thing happened. We came to like each other. In fact, Mrs. Brisbane became one of my favorite humans in the whole wide world. Until now. The Mrs. Brisbane I grew to like, even love, wouldn't just head off to a faraway land without making sure I was well taken care of. So maybe I was right not to like her in the very beginning. But that couldn't be. She'd taken good care of me for a long time now. I was just going to have to trust her and believe that whatever surprise she had in store for Og and me would be something good, even though I knew from experience that surprises can also be bad things, like meeting up with Clem the dog or Sweetums the cat. Just in case I was wrong, I stayed up late writing in my notebook that night, my last night at school. Things I could do when school is over. Go back to Pedorama, the pet store I came from. Not a good idea. Teach other hamsters to read and write. Where? Pedorama? What about Og? Find a school that doesn't end. How would I find one? My hamster ball? Work at Maycrest Manor. I've already gone there to help people who are sick or injured. Maybe they'd like Og too. Hit the road with Og and roam free. Not after seeing those scary creatures in the movie in the library last night. My list didn't look too promising. The sun came up the next morning like any ordinary day. The bell rang and my friends rushed in like any ordinary day. But that bad feeling in the pit of my stomach told me this was not an ordinary day. Og, I squeaked loudly so my neighbor could hear me. "I hope we'll stay together, but if we don't, you've been an unsqueakably nice neighbor and I'll miss you." "Boing, boing, boing," Og twanged. He splashed so loudly, I thought he'd pop the top right off his tank. He'd done that a time or two before. I felt a little better knowing he agreed with me, but I was still worried. I hopped on my wheel for a fast and furious spin just to let off some steam. It was a very busy day in room 26. Mrs. Brisbane collected all of my friends' textbooks, but not my little notebook. I kept it well hidden. Instead of reading and writing and taking tests, Mrs. Brisbane and my fellow students were busy packing up their desks and straightening up. Room 26 had never been so neat before. At the very end of the day, Mrs. Brisbane said that we were the most wonderful students she'd ever had, and she knew that we'd all go on to great futures. That was nice, if only I knew what my future would be. Then she made a very important announcement. Report cards will be mailed out this week, she said. Some students groaned. Now, Mrs. Brisbane continued, none of you have anything to worry about. That seemed to please my friends a lot. But there are 2 students getting their report cards today, she said. They are very special students who helped make this the best class I ever had. Then, to my surprise, she picked up 2 small cards from her desk and walked over to the table where Og and I lived. At least for the moment. She read the first card. Og, you have gotten top grades in water skills, loud noise making, splashing, and being very green. All A's, she announced. My classmates clapped and cheered as she placed the card up against Og's tank. Boing, 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 Og twanged. Then Mrs. Brisbane turned to me. Humphrey, you have gotten top grades in wheel spinning, hamster ball rolling, and squeaking. All A's. Mrs. Brisbane hesitated, but you have gotten an A+ in one other subject. Helping your friends. You are truly the most helpful hamster I've ever known. Oh, how my friends clapped and cheered. They whistled and stomped, and they stood up and applauded some more. Humphrey, 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 they chanted. I was just about the proudest hamster in the whole wide world. Thank you, thank you, thank you, I squeaked as loudly as I could. Everything was perfect, except for that little part about not knowing what I was going to do for the rest of my life. Mrs. Brisbane, a voice called out. Someone was speaking out of turn, but for once it wasn't Raise Your Hand Heidi. It was Saya, the shyest girl in room 26, or at least she used to be the shyest girl in class. Yes, Saya, Mrs. Brisbane said. Saya stood up next to her desk. I'd like to thank Humphrey for helping me learn to speak up, she said in a strong voice. I will never forget him, not for my whole life. You're welcome, Saya, I squeaked. Suddenly, sit still, Seth Stevenson stood up. And I'd like to thank Humphrey for helping me settle down. At least a little. Then one by one, they stood up. Don't complain, Mandy. Thank me for helping her meet her hamster, Winky. Pay attention, Art said I'd helped him with his math. And it's not even my best subject. And Golden Miranda thanked me for being her best friend. And I want to thank Og for being a great frog, Heidi Hopper said. And she even raised her hand before saying it. Later, Principal Morales came into the classroom. He was wearing a tie that had tiny cars all over it. Students in room 26, I want to congratulate you on a great year, he said, and I wish you a wonderful summer ahead. He was in and out of the room quickly, but as he left, I didn't know if I would ever see the most important person at Longfellow School again. I was happy, I was tired, I was nervous. As the clock went tick, 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 I wondered about my future and Og's. I hopped on my wheel again and spun. Then something surprising and wonderful happened. Ms. Mack entered room 26. Ms. Mack! With bouncy black curls tumbling around her lovely happy face, with her big dark eyes and that slight smell of yummy apples, my friends all cheered when they saw her. Like me, they had started off with her as their teacher. She'd broken my heart when she went to Brazil, but I forgave her when she came back. That's what happens when you love somebody. Am I too early, Ms. Mack asked. Mrs. Brisbane smiled. Nope, your timing is perfect. Please go ahead. Ms. Mack was wearing a pink blouse and a bright red skirt and tall red shoes. Students, she said in a way that made the words sound wonderful. I know you all have exciting plans for the summer, and Mrs. Brisbane has exciting plans too. But I just want you to know that your friends Humphrey and Og are going to have a fantastic summer too, because they are coming with me. Eek! I actually tumbled off my wheel. Of all the wonderful, fabulous, remarkable, and amazing things Og and I could do for the summer, being with Ms. Mack would be the most wonderful, fabulous, remarkable, amazing of all. Boing, 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 boing. Og obviously agreed with me. I'm glad you're pleased, said Ms. Mac, because we are going to have a great adventure. I was overjoyed. Og and I didn't have to go to Pedorama or search for unending schools or hit the open road. We were going to have a great adventure. I had a big lump in my throat just thinking of leaving my friends, but my heart went pitter-patter at the thought of being with Ms. Mac again. And then it happened. The bell rang, and my friends all raced out of room 26, out of Longfellow's school. Bye, 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 I squeaked, but I don't think anyone could hear me. Og dived into his tank and made a huge splash. Well, boys, here comes summer. Ms. Mac told us with a big smile on her face. Summer, what a wonderful word. Oh, I hoped. Note to self, anytime you think humans don't know what they're doing, they'll usually prove you wrong, wrong, wrong.